3 pennies. One unbelievable story. One was struck in 1942 during World War II. The other two spent decades hiding in plain sight. Today, the finest known examples have reached values of $57,000, $72,000, and $247,000, more than $376,000 combined. But here's the shocking part. Most people would never look at these wheat pennies twice. So before you spend another penny, ask yourself one question. What if a small piece of American history is sitting in your collection right now? Imagine opening a dusty coin album that hasn't been touched in decades. The pages are worn, the plastic sleeves slightly yellowed with age, and most of the coins inside appear completely ordinary. Then your eyes stop on a single copper cent. At first glance, it looks no different from thousands of others that once passed through cash registers, lunch counters, and family pockets across America. Yet this humble piece of metal would eventually become one of the most admired survivors of its generation, a coin capable of capturing the attention of serious collectors across the country. That coin is the 1954 D Liberty Lincoln Wheat Penny, struck at the Denver Mint during a period when America was entering a new chapter of post-war confidence and growth. Millions of these pennies were produced, each intended for a simple purpose: everyday commerce. Nobody at the Mint could have imagined that decades later, collectors would carefully study certain examples under magnification, searching for the finest survivors among them. The small D mint mark beneath the date tells an important part of its story. It identifies Denver as the place where this coin was born. To most Americans in 1954, that tiny letter meant nothing. Today, however, collectors recognize it as a clue linking the coin to a specific mint facility, production process, and historical moment. In numismatics, even the smallest detail can transform an ordinary object into a documented piece of history. To understand this penny, it helps to step back into 1954. The United States was experiencing economic expansion. New neighborhoods were rising, highways were growing, and families were building futures shaped by optimism. While major events filled newspaper headlines, millions of Lincoln Wheat pennies quietly circulated through grocery stores, movie theaters, and local businesses. Each coin became a silent witness to everyday American life. Its design carried a deeper purpose as well. Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln had already become one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. On the reverse, the wheat ears symbolized prosperity, agriculture, and the nation's connection to hard work and growth. Together, these elements created more than currency. They created a miniature piece of American identity that could fit into a pocket. Collectors are often drawn to this coin not because it is flashy, but because it feels personal. Many first encounter one while sorting inherited collections or examining old jars of saved change. The experience is less like finding money and more like discovering a message preserved from another era. Every mark, every trace of wear tells a story about where that coin may have traveled. When specialists evaluate a 1954 D wheat penny, condition becomes everything. Sharp details in Lincoln's hair, strong wheat lines on the reverse, original mint luster, and minimal surface disturbances can separate an average example from an exceptional one. Some collectors also watch for striking variations and production anomalies that add another layer of interest to the search. Over the years, the finest preserved examples have earned remarkable respect within the collecting community, not because they are simply old, but because so few survived in extraordinary condition. In the highest grades, where preservation approaches perfection, competition among collectors can become intense. One of the most celebrated examples reached an astonishing value of approximately $57,000, reflecting a combination of rarity, quality, authenticity, and demand. Yet the true legacy of the 1954 D Liberty Lincoln Wheat Penny extends far beyond any auction result. It remains a survivor of a different America, a small copper witness to countless untold stories. And as our journey continues, another coin awaits, ready to reveal how extraordinary history can sometimes hide in the most ordinary places. The investigation began with a box of coins purchased at a small estate sale. Nothing about it seemed remarkable. There were loose cents, a few nickels, and several worn coin folders that had clearly been handled by generations of collectors. While sorting through the pennies, one coin immediately stood apart. Its surface appeared unusually dark, almost black in places, as though time itself had left a deeper mark on it. Most people would have passed over it without a second glance. A careful collector did not. At first, the question seemed simple. Was the dark appearance damage, environmental exposure, or something more interesting? Under closer examination, the date emerged clearly, 1950. Beneath, it sat the small but important D mint mark, identifying the Denver Mint as its place of origin. The coin was a 1950 D Liberty Lincoln Wheat Penny, a piece of everyday American currency that had survived more than 7 decades. Yet the investigation was only beginning. Comparing it with other wheat pennies revealed the first real clue. Despite its dark coloration, many of the design details remained surprisingly sharp. Lincoln's portrait still showed strong definition, and the wheat ears on the reverse retained much of their original structure. This raised an important question. If the surface had darkened over time, how much of the coin's original quality had actually survived beneath that appearance? To answer that, collectors often look beyond color and focus on preservation. Experienced numismatists study wear patterns, strike quality, luster, and surface integrity. A coin can appear unattractive to a casual observer while still possessing characteristics that make specialists pay attention. In the world of coin collecting, first impressions are not always the most important evidence. The year 1950 offers another clue. America was entering a new decade shaped by post-war prosperity, industrial growth, and increasing consumer activity. Pennies flowed through grocery stores, factories, restaurants, and small businesses every day. The Denver Mint produced millions of cents to meet that demand. Most would eventually wear down through circulation. Only a small fraction would remain preserved well enough to attract serious attention decades later. The design itself provides another piece of the puzzle. Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln represented leadership, endurance, and national unity. On the reverse, the twin wheat stalks symbolized productivity and the agricultural foundations of the nation. These images connected ordinary Americans to larger national ideals. Every transaction involving this penny carried that symbolism quietly through daily life. As collector interest in Lincoln Wheat Pennies expanded over the years, specialists began comparing examples more carefully. Side-by-side examinations revealed that exceptional 1950 D cents could display remarkable strike quality, strong original detail, and attractive preservation. Despite decades of survival, auction, experts noticed that the finest examples consistently attracted competitive bidding from collectors seeking top-quality representatives of the series. That growing recognition eventually transformed certain specimens from ordinary collectibles into highly sought-after pieces. The most impressive examples earned certification at elite grades, confirming both authenticity and extraordinary preservation. When one of these superior survivors appeared on the auction market, demand reflected far more than age alone. Historical significance, condition, collector interest, and rarity at the highest levels all converged. One outstanding 1950 D Liberty Lincoln, black, dirty wheat, penny, ultimately achieved a value of approximately $72,000. What began as a dark coin hidden among ordinary cents became evidence of how history can survive in unexpected forms. Its story reminds us that appearances often conceal deeper truths, and that careful observation can reveal remarkable connections to America's past. Yet as significant as this penny may be, the final coin in our investigation carries a legacy that reaches even further through the history of American coinage. Imagine a small copper coin resting in a dresser drawer while decades of life unfold around it. Children grow up, families move, old photographs fade, and entire generations pass. Through all of those changes, the coin remains, silent, unnoticed, waiting. It is remarkable to think that an object small enough to fit in the palm of a hand can outlive the world that first created it. Yet some coins do exactly that, carrying pieces of history forward long after the people who spent them are gone. Among collectors, one such survivor would eventually earn extraordinary respect for what it preserved. This final chapter belongs to the 1942 D Liberty Lincoln Wheat Penny, struck at the Denver Mint during one of the most consequential periods in American history. The year 1942 marked a nation adapting to the realities of World War I. Factories shifted toward wartime production, Communities contributed to the national effort, and everyday Americans faced a future filled with uncertainty and determination. Pennies continued to circulate through stores, train stations, and neighborhoods, quietly participating in daily life while history accelerated around them. The coin itself reflected values that Americans already understood. Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham. Lincoln stood as a symbol of perseverance, leadership, and unity. On the reverse, the familiar wheat ears represented growth, productivity, and the strength of ordinary citizens. During a time when the country depended upon collective effort, those symbols carried special meaning. What began as practical currency also became a reflection of national identity. Years later, many collectors first encountered 1942 wheat pennies not in auctions but in family collections. An old album inherited from a grandparent, a cigar box tucked away in an attic, a handful of cents saved by someone who believed even the smallest objects deserve preservation. In those moments, the value of a coin is rarely the first thing people notice. Instead, they see a connection to someone they knew, a tangible reminder that history is often personal before it becomes collectible. For numismatists, the Denver Mint mark adds another layer to the story. That small letter identifies where the coin was produced and helps place it within the broader narrative of American coinage. Collectors examine strike quality, surface condition, and remaining detail to understand how well a coin survived the decades. A heavily weathered copper surface may reveal years of circulation, but it can also tell a story of endurance. Every mark becomes evidence of a journey through time. As interest in Lincoln Wheat Pennies continued to grow, specialists began paying closer attention to the finest surviving examples. Grading experts evaluated authenticity, preservation, and originality with extraordinary care. The challenge was not simply finding a 1942 penny, it was finding one that had retained exceptional characteristics. Despite the passage of more than 80 years, those rare survivors became benchmarks for collectors seeking the very best representations of the series. When one remarkable example reached the auction market, its significance was immediately understood. Collectors were not competing for copper alone. They were pursuing a piece of American history preserved at an extraordinary level. The result was a price of approximately $247,000, achieved through a combination of authenticity, condition, historical importance, and enduring collector demand. Our journey began with curiosity. It continued through investigation. It ends here with perspective. These three coins remind us that history does not survive only in monuments, museums, or textbooks. Sometimes it survives in the loose change of a forgotten collection, in an album stored on a shelf, or in a single penny passed from one generation to the next. The next time you encounter an old coin, take a closer look. You may not simply be holding money. You may be holding a small, enduring piece of the human story, waiting to be remembered.